made it very clear that when the decision to introduce tuition fees was first applied, that they would not increase until the first generation of students who paid tuition fees had gone through. That happens this year, and there will be a review of the level of tuition fees. But I agree very much with the gentleman who's just spoken about the importance of opening up the ambition to go to university to young people in families where there is no history of further and higher education.
I want to interrupt you, but what do you make Douglas Murray's point? You've got to be paid for.
Yeah, of course it has.
The taxpayer pay for it?
Yeah, with the taxpayer, the contribution, as is the case at the moment, contribution from students themselves. But if we're going to remain competitive in a world where there is such a premium on knowledge, we have to have world-class universities with excellent research departments, with first-class students. I mean, it's also an investment in our economy as well as an investment in the future of young people. And one of the things which is really encouraging as a result of the introduction of top-up fees is the increase in the number of students from poor families with no history of going to university. And, you know, when Douglas talks about social mobility, that's one of the ways in which you start promoting
your
social
former
mobility.
Education Secretary, Charles Clarke, said that he wished he'd made more of the argument that if at 18 you're an adult and you have to decide for yourself and you should pay. And that's the point of being an adult, is you decide. You disagree with him?
Well, I think that's probably a very difficult rule to apply in practice. I think that you have to say to young people going to university, if you want to go to this university, this is the level of contribution. And there are all sorts of protections in the way in which tuition fees are levied to prevent the deterrent to young people from poorer families. And that is absolutely crucial.
The woman in red there.
Heaping piles of debt on graduates seems a particularly big problem, considering that we're in a recession and that there is a decreasing job market, so graduates are already struggling to get jobs and won't be able to pay their debt back.
Fern, Britton.
Yes, I do agree with you. I mean, obviously in an ideal world, we all want our NHS to be free and excellent, and all our education to be free and excellent, and for every person to have an opportunity to go into further education and beyond. But if it comes at a big price, and I think obviously in these last 5-6 years, it takes that time for us to have a community think about it. And it's happened when my children were young enough for me to start thinking about how much money I have to put away for them if they choose to go to university, because the best thing I can do for them as a parent is not land them with an enormous debt at the end. I know I'm in a very privileged position where I can do that. The concern obviously is for pupils whose families haven't got that much money that they can keep putting away and grow. Now, what's the answer? I think universities should start still looking at people who can't afford it, who can give them their, the grants and things, and keep those people, still want to bring them into universities, whilst those of us who can afford it, yes, we have to pay our way and maybe help the others as well.
Good.
I'd just like to make the point that university should be a place of academic excellence, and I agree with Vince Cable that 50% of people as a target is ridiculous. 50% of people don't need to go to university. If you're academically capable and willing to go to university, then of course, irrelevant of wealth, absolutely anything, that is what's important. And it should be about whether they're academically capable and whether they should go. It's ridiculous, this government target of 50%. Can you please explain why is there this 50% target?
Have you been to university?
I have been to university. You know, I worked hard through my school. I've as well come from a privileged background as well. But at the same time, that I cast aside whether you come from a privileged background or whether you come from the complete opposite. It's important if you're academically capable, you go to university. But at the same time, if it's just the thing to do, all your friends are going to university, I must go to university, that's ultimately a waste of taxpayers' money.
Kenneth Clarke.
I was always opposed to tuition fees, blocked them when I was Chancellor, when the idea came from the Vice-Chancellors, and I voted against it when it was introduced it, and I've changed my position, really. I think you have to find some alternative way of paying for higher education if you're to maintain that. I went along with all the sound social mobility, meritocratic arguments, but the fact is we're in the worst possible position now where it's kind of frozen and the universities are getting underfunded again at a time when we need them. And I listened to a minister being interviewed on the radio the other day. The government obviously intend to put up the level after the election. They're supposed to be holding a review, but they won't start this review. We've offered to discuss with them how to do it, and they won't discuss it. And I listened to the particular minister, and I thought, you know, if they were to win an election within a fortnight, it's going up.
Who was this?
What's his name? David Lammy. He didn't say that, but I could tell the fact he wasn't answering questions at all and money around this review, we're starting it soon and all that. It's been promised for about 2 years. I could see he'd been told, play it into the long grass. This is no way of running universities. We've offered to discuss it with them, and unless you come up with a better system, then of course you have to make sure the debts are only repaid when people earn an income, they can afford it. You have to keep the bursaries, which the government abolished when they first went to fees. They've fortunately brought them back and all that. But I wouldn't go to the remedy for populist reasons of saying let's have fewer students. I agree with all the silly courses. What we need is universities of serious levels. 50% as a target, you're quite right, is an absurdity. It was a speech that Tony Blair made about 6 years ago, and they won't come off it. But everybody who can benefit from genuine higher education, we need more of them now than at any time in the past.
But do you think that universities that are traditionally more expensive, Manchester or Oxford or Cambridge or London, should charge more than other universities? Do you think there should be a freeing up of the system?
My old meritocratic prejudices are still there, actually. I mean, the Russell Group universities will all argue, let us charge more, but I don't agree with that, because then what will happen is our really elite universities will be able to charge tuition fees which will go into the sky. They're worth it. Actually, I prefer to stop us having a group of universities which only people with parental support can seriously contemplate going to. They should be merit alone. But unless someone comes up with a better idea, the fees are going to go up, and it's no good having a silly business of a target you can't hit, which you're not prepared to pay for, and when you only put up the fees a bit after every election, which is where the Labour Party currently is standing.
Woman in the middle there.
I was extremely lucky. I went to university in 1995, to a top university, to read economics. I was in the receipt of a full grant, and I'm very thankful for that. It really worries me now that with the expansion in university, that those who are towards, the bottom end of the scale, not able to afford these costs, are not going to be able to benefit in the same way. And I think it's very detrimental to social mobility, the sort of like the plans the government have.
So you think the taxpayer should pay, really, for as it was before?
I think that 50% as a target is absolutely ludicrous. I think it should go back to being sort of like 10%, and those of genuine intellectual ability should be fully funded.
All right, let's hold on to that point. I'll just go to the man up there, at the very back on the left-hand side. Sorry, it's a woman.
Me. Hi.
It's you.
Yeah, as a teacher myself working in education, I think what we need to do is ensure that the education that we provide opens doors for all our students and all our young people, but what we want them to do is get to the door which is appropriate so that the door opens. What we need to do is put a lot more investment into work-related learning, into looking at how the diplomas are going to be introduced. If we think about diplomas and the idea of every student needs to have a work placement and small businesses, trying to encourage them into schools to get that relationship going, because I think that's the future rather than students all going to universities.
Has the time come, Tessa Jowell, to review the 50% target?
No, I don't think it has come, and I simply don't accept this idea that you take the 50% target and somehow you get better universities by reducing it to 35%. I mean, the aim here
10%
is to,
was what was said by
yes, or 10%. What's important here is opening up the prospect of going to university, enjoying higher education, to those vast numbers of young people in the population who would never have expected